Welcome to Wickerson Studios. This is a quick summary of my latest video, which is a little dry, but there is an awful lot of information in there for the beginner to Rhino3D that wants to know about the essentials of Grasshopper. So what I will share on my GitHub file, and I'll put it through my Patreon, but put this one open to start, is the essential Grasshopper for Rhino3D. And how it runs is I basically go in and cover what is the most important things you need to know from Scribble Tool to how to work number sliders and looking at panels and booleans. Then I go into how to work with Param Containers and bringing in points, curves, surfaces, breps, and geometries. After that, I move on to point creation, what it means to make one, and certainly think of vector creation, and in the same time, deconstructing those bits of information. What happens after that is I get into plane creation, the standard XY, XZ, and YZ, and then we go into how to create your own planes from your XY axis references. Creating points to move farther is to look into curve creation and think about the primitives circle, rectangle, and polygons. But when looking at lines, if you require more than 2 points, which is what a line requires, and you want to get into polylines, NURBS, interpolated curves, and NURBS surfaces, you're going to have to think about, and I use a little weave component here for fun, because I think weaving is tied to computational studies right off the bat. We have to move into series so we can have a sense of understanding how to create a series of points to generate those curves. Otherwise, NURBS curves won't work. I then go on from the series node and end up using the range node. Fairly simple things, range and domain going hand in hand with what series was. After that, I want to go in and talk a little bit about curve analysis and what it means to acquire the parameter or the point along a curve, because that's basically, once that understanding's done, curves become very informative to points. And then I talk a little bit about curve division and what's possible, and a few of the utilities that are tied to working with curves. I do use examples, and I think you'll enjoy it. The first surface creation I think about is the same way I thought about curves. Let's get into the primitives, cones, cylinders, quad spheres, and spheres. But I show how with lines, there's a beautiful algorithm in subdivisions that you can start producing surfaces immediately as a beginner. And that's one that really throws my class for a loop and they really enjoy. The other thing is, as I grab these NURBS, curves, and polylines, NURBS curves, interpolated curves, and polylines, I put them through a very simple loft command, which everybody's used to when they think about creating surfaces. After that, I get into surface analysis and say, let's get into these 3-dimensional breps or 2-dimensional breps and turn them into deprepping those, just like deconstructing points and deconstructing vectors, and then acquiring the information of that, I go on to a little bit of surface analysis dealing with evaluate point, and instead of using a multidimensional slider, I show how that actually is a 2-dimensional plane of points that you might want to use. That's it for the first section. It's great to look at. I hope you enjoy it. This GitHub file will be there available for you to use on my GitHub, Essential Grasshopper for Rhino3D Beginner Part 1, and then Part 2 I will continue with more surface analysis dealing with dividing surface and dealing with ISO trim and ISO curves and divide domain 2 components, and you'll find out that you have a really nice way of starting to analyze curves and getting into all the normals and dealing in surfaces as if they're multiple lines, just like lines are multiple points. I skip over a lot of the intersection nodes for the beginning and then talk a little briefly, and I'll go into deep on part 2 of what type of transformation vectors and transforms you want to use that's most common to Rhino. So I hope you find that useful. I hope you find this file useful. It's kind of the master script for my class that covers everything from Param Containers all the way through the surface analysis. And I've got my mic working well, so I hope you start enjoying listening in once again to Wickerson at Wickerson Studios. Thank you.